The gas station industry does not want you to watch this video. Let me open with a number that is going to make you genuinely furious. Right now, as you're watching this, independent inspectors are finding that nearly 1 out of every 3 gas stations tested across the United States is failing basic fuel quality standards, not barely missing the mark, actually failing. We are talking about water seeping into underground storage tanks, rust sediment flowing straight into your fuel system, and in documented cases that have resulted in state fines and legal action. Station operators selling you 87 octane regular gasoline while the pump display reads 93 and charges you accordingly. You are paying for premium and burning regular, and the worst part is you would never know just by looking at the pump or listening to your engine, at least not right away. The American fuel industry has quietly divided itself into 2 completely separate business philosophies, and understanding the difference between them is going to save you real money. On one side of this divide, you have 8 specific brands that have spent decades and invested genuinely significant resources developing proprietary detergent chemistry that actually does what it claims to do. These are brands running polyethyramine additive concentrations at 5, 6, and in some cases 7 times higher than what the Environmental Protection Agency requires by law. These brands have submitted their fuel to independent laboratory testing. They have earned official endorsements from automakers like BMW, Toyota, Honda, and General Motors, companies that built the engines and know exactly what kind of fuel those engines need to stay healthy long term. On the other side of that divide, you have stations that are doing the absolute legal minimum. They are sourcing commodity fuel from regional terminals, doing nothing meaningful to it, putting whatever brand name or color scheme they want on the canopy, and charging you prices that are sometimes identical to the brands that actually invested in chemistry. Same price. Drastically different product inside your tank. Subscribe now, not for entertainment, for protection. Because once you understand how this industry really works, you will never look at a gas pump the same way again. Here is something the industry does not advertise loudly. The top-tier gasoline certification program exists specifically because automakers got tired of watching their engines accumulate deposits from low-quality fuel. GM, BMW, Toyota, Honda, and other manufacturers funded and designed this certification program independently. A station cannot simply pay to be on the list. The fuel has to pass rigorous third-party deposit testing. When you see that top-tier logo at a pump, it means the fuel was independently verified to meet a detergent standard that is dramatically higher than the federal EPA baseline. Without that certification, you are taking a gamble every single time you fill up. And, according to industry data, that gamble costs the average American driver somewhere between $800 and $1,000 per year when you factor in reduced fuel economy from dirty injectors, carbon buildup on intake valves, rough idle symptoms, and the eventual repair bills when components fail prematurely because they spent years running on marginal fuel. Stay with me through this entire video because the 8th brand on this list is doing something that should be impossible. They are delivering detergent concentrations at 5 times the EPA requirement while pricing their fuel an average of 20 cents per gallon below the competition. I will explain exactly how they pull that off and why it matters for your specific situation. Brand number 1, Chevron with Techron. If you want to understand why top-tier gasoline exists as a category, you have to start with Chevron, because Chevron is not simply a participant in this story. Chevron is the reason this story exists in the first place. In 1981, Chevron's research chemists developed and commercialized a molecule called polyethyramine, which you will hear referred to as PEA throughout this video. This was not an incremental improvement on existing additive chemistry. It was a fundamentally different approach to how detergents interact with engine surfaces. At the time, the standard additive being used across the industry was polyisobutylene amine, known as PIBA. PIBA does clean intake valves reasonably well, but it has a critical flaw that became more significant as engine designs evolved. Under the heat and pressure of combustion, PIBA leaves behind residue in combustion chambers. Over thousands of miles, that residue builds up, creates hotspots, reduces combustion efficiency, and can eventually cause pre-ignition or knocking in high-compression engines. P, the molecule Chevron invented, behaves differently at the molecular level. It dissolves deposits on intake valves and fuel injector tips, removes carbon buildup from combustion chamber surfaces, and critically, it does all of this without leaving any residue of its own behind. The engine gets cleaned and then stays clean, because the cleaning agent itself burns away completely without contributing to new deposits. Chevron branded this chemistry Techron, and they have been building on that foundation ever since 1981. The independent data on what this chemistry actually accomplishes is striking. IDA, the American Automobile Association, conducted a comprehensive multi-year study comparing top-tier certified fuels against non-certified fuels under controlled real-world conditions. After just 4,000 miles of driving, Engines running on non-top tier fuel accumulated 19 times more intake valve deposits than identical engines running on top tier fuel. Not 19% more, 19 times more. That is a measurement that makes the word significant feel inadequate. What makes Chevron's specific approach stand out even within the top tier category is their commitment to treating every single octane grade equally. A lot of brands, including some others on this list, put their full premium additive package into their 91 or 93 octane fuel and dial it back significantly in the regular 87 octane product. Chevron does not do that. Every grade of Chevron fuel, whether it is 87, 89, or 91, receives the complete Techron formulation at the same concentration. This matters enormously because the overwhelming majority of cars on American roads run on regular 87 octane fuel. If you drive a Toyota Camry, a Honda Accord, a Ford F-150, or virtually any mainstream vehicle built in the last 20 years, you are buying regular fuel the vast majority of the time. With Chevron, that regular fuel is doing the same cleaning work as their premium. Independent testing specifically measuring Techron's cleaning capability found that consistent use over 4,500 miles removed up to 50% of existing intake valve deposits while simultaneously restoring measurable improvements in fuel economy in vehicles that had previously been running on low-quality fuel. Chevron's fuel is listed as a recommended product in the owner's manuals of multiple major automakers, which means the engineers who designed your specific engine reviewed the chemistry and approved it. The price premium for all of this is approximately 3 cents per gallon over generic, non-certified fuel. 3 cents. That is the trade-off Chevron is asking you to make. The bottom line on Chevron is this. They are the institution that built the science of fuel additives from the ground up. 40-plus years of refinement, independent verification, automaker endorsements, and chemistry proven to work in every single octane grade. If you want the original and still one of the best, Chevron is where the conversation starts. But Chevron's approach is essentially a precision cleaning system. What happens when a brand decides that cleaning is not enough and protection needs to happen at the molecular level simultaneously? That is where brand number 2 takes the concept somewhere entirely different. Brand number 2, Shell V-Power Nitro. Shell's engineering team looked at the top-tier certification standard and made a deliberate decision that is worth understanding. Rather than meeting the top-tier threshold and optimizing for cost efficiency from there, they chose to build their premium product as far above that threshold as the chemistry would allow. Shell V-Power Nitro Plus contains detergent concentrations at 7 times the EPA minimum requirement in the premium grade formulation. When OEUSA conducted their independent fuel testing and measured detergent levels across all major brands, Shell Premium came in at 31. 0 milligrams of detergent per 100 milliliters of fuel. That was the single highest measurement recorded across every premium fuel tested in the study. Higher than Chevron, higher than Exxon Mobil, higher than every other brand in this video. The engineering decision that separates Shell's approach most clearly from the competition is the addition of nitrogen-enriched molecules to the detergent package. Here is what that actually means in practical terms. Traditional fuel detergents work by dissolving and removing deposits that have already formed on engine surfaces. That is reactive chemistry. Shell's nitrogen molecule system does that cleaning work, but it simultaneously deposits a protective molecular layer onto critical metal surfaces after cleaning them. The cleaned surface is not just clean, it is actively guarded against the formation of new deposits. That is the difference between mopping a floor and then applying a wax coating. The surfaces that benefit most from this are the ones that run the hottest. Direct injection fuel injector tips on modern engines operate at temperatures that can exceed 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit during normal combustion cycles. At those temperatures, fuel deposits form fast and they form hard. Shell's friction modifiers specifically target those high heat zones, protecting the injector tips that are most expensive to repair or replace when they fail. The results from documented testing show that continuous use of Shell V-Power Nitro Plus over a meaningful number of fill-ups removes up to 100% of fuel injector deposits. Not 90%, not 95%. The documentation says 100% removal in tested engines. The system also works across both older port fuel injection engines and modern direct injection engines, which matters because the deposit patterns in those two system types are completely different. One detail that deserves more attention than it typically gets is that Shell builds their nitrogen-enriched chemistry into their regular 87 octane fuel as well. You do not have to buy V-Power Premium to get meaningful protection. You get a version of the nitrogen chemistry at the regular grade. Buying Premium gives you higher concentrations and additional performance compounds, but the foundational protection is present across the board. There is also an important context point about modern engine design that makes Shell's approach particularly relevant right now. The automotive industry has been moving aggressively toward direct injection engines, turbocharged engines, and hybrid powertrains that cycle between combustion and electric operation. All of these designs create more challenging deposit conditions than the port injection naturally aspirated engines that dominated the market 20 years ago. Shell's chemistry was developed with these modern engine conditions in mind. The bottom line on Shell V-Power Nitro Plus is that this is the overachiever in the group. 7 times the minimum is not a marketing exaggeration, it is a documented measurement. Your engine does not just get clean, it gets a protective molecular coating applied every time you fill up. For anyone driving a newer, direct injection turbocharged vehicle, Shell's formulation aligns most directly with what those engines are up against on a daily basis. Now here's the question that gets genuinely interesting. What if you could access chemistry that performs comparably to Shell, passes the same top-tier certification tests, and costs you 21 cents less per gallon at the pump? That leads us directly to the brand that the fuel industry did not see coming. Brand number 3, Costco Kirkland, Signature Gasoline. Costco did not enter the gasoline business with any intention of becoming a major player in fuel chemistry. They entered the business because fuel is a category where their fundamental business model, delivering high quality at the lowest possible price by cutting out every unnecessary middleman, could be applied with devastating effectiveness. Kirkland Signature Gasoline carries top-tier certification. It contains 5 times the EPA minimum detergent requirement in both the regular and the premium grade. That last part matters more than it might initially appear. Most brands, including some on this list, put their best chemistry into premium fuel and deliver a significantly reduced additive package in regular. Costco makes no such distinction. The same 5 times standard applies regardless of which grade you're pumping. To understand why Costco can deliver this quality at a price that is consistently 21 to 35 cents per gallon below competitors, you need to understand what they did with their additive injection system. Most gas stations receive fuel from a distribution terminal that is already blended with whatever additive package the supplier uses. The station operator has essentially zero control over what goes into the fuel or at what concentration. They take what the tanker delivers. Costco designed and installed proprietary on-site additive injection systems at their fuel stations. The base fuel arrives from the terminal, and then a trained Costco employee oversees the precise injection of their Lubrizol detergent package directly at the station during the fueling process. Lubrizol is one of the most respected specialty chemical companies in the petroleum additive industry. This system gives Costco direct control over additive concentration at every single fill. If the concentration drifts, they catch it immediately. The quality is verified at the point of delivery rather than trusted to a third party upstream. There is a second quality advantage that is easy to overlook. Costco fuel stations do enormous volume. These locations are serving hundreds or thousands of cars per day in many markets. That level of throughput means the fuel in Costco's underground tanks is turning over constantly. You're not pumping gasoline that has been sitting in a tank for 3 or 4 weeks, slowly degrading. You're getting fresh fuel that arrived recently and has not had time to accumulate water condensation or sediment from sitting idle. AAA evaluated Costco's fuel independently and described it publicly as the best gasoline at the lowest prices available in the markets they tested. In fiscal year 2024, Costco sold approximately $30 billion worth of gasoline. That volume gives them extraordinary leverage with suppliers and allows them to pass the savings directly to the consumer while maintaining the chemistry standards they have committed to. Here is the practical financial calculation. If you fill up an average-sized car roughly once per week and your tank holds 15 gallons, the 21 to 35 cent per gallon savings at Costco compared to a Shell or Chevron station adds up to between $163 and $273 over the course of a year. A Costco Gold Star membership costs $65 per year. The math on the membership paying for itself purely through fuel savings works out in roughly 6 to 8 fill-ups. Everything after that is pure savings, and you're still getting certified top-tier chemistry. The bottom line on Costco is that this is the brand that disrupted the comfortable pricing assumptions of the entire fuel industry. They proved that the premium detergent chemistry and the premium price tag do not have to come as a package deal. If you live within a reasonable distance of a Costco fuel station, the decision to use it over any other top-tier brand is almost purely financial, and the numbers heavily favor Costco. Before we move forward, I want to ask you something directly. Have you been using top-tier certified fuel consistently? Or have you been pulling into whatever station is most convenient without thinking about what that choice is actually doing to your engine over time? Drop your answer in the comments, because the community's responses to this question are genuinely interesting, and I read every one of them. And if this information is valuable to you, hitting subscribe costs you nothing and make sure you see the next video. Brand number 4, Exxon Mobil Synergy. When Exxon and Mobil completed their merger in 1999, they did not simply combine their distribution networks and rebrand the pumps. They combined 2 separate legacy fuel research programs that had been running independently for decades and spent years integrating what worked best from each into a unified formulation called Synergy. The Synergy formulation contains 9 distinct active ingredients. That complexity is deliberate and worth explaining. 3 of those 9 ingredients are separate detergent compounds, each targeting a different type of deposit in a different part of the fuel system. The first detergent is optimized to address intake valve deposits, the carbon buildup that forms on the backside of intake valves in port injection engines and restricts airflow. The second detergent targets fuel injector deposits specifically, the waxy residue that gradually narrows injector nozzle openings and disrupts the precise spray pattern your engine needs for efficient combustion. The third detergent works in the combustion chamber itself, addressing carbon that has already made it past the intake and bonded to piston crowns and cylinder head surfaces. Beyond the 3 detergents, the Synergy formula includes a dedicated friction modifier that reduces mechanical wear at contact points throughout the fuel delivery system, a corrosion inhibitor that protects metal surfaces in the fuel tank and fuel lines from oxidation-related degradation, and 4 additional proprietary compounds that Exxon Mobil has not fully disclosed, but that contribute to the overall performance profile. When AOA measured detergent levels in regular grade fuel specifically, Exxon Mobil's regular came in at 20.00 milligrams per 100 milliliters. That was the highest reading recorded among all regular grade fuels tested across every brand. That is a meaningful distinction because, as noted earlier, the majority of vehicles on American roads run on regular 87-octane fuel daily. Getting the highest detergent concentration in the regular grade means Exxon Mobil is delivering exceptional protection to the broadest possible segment of drivers, not just to people buying premium. The other practical advantage Exxon Mobil brings is scale and consistency. With thousands of stations distributed across virtually every region of the country, finding an Exxon or Mobil location is almost never difficult, regardless of where you are. And because of their size and the internal quality control protocols that come with operating at that scale, the fuel quality at a station in rural Ohio is going to be essentially identical to the fuel quality at a high-volume urban station in Los Angeles. The bottom line on ExxonMobil Synergy is that this is the multinational precision instrument of the fuel world. 9 ingredients working in coordinated roles, the highest documented regular grade detergent levels in independent testing, and consistent availability nationwide. This is a fuel formulation built for systematic, long-term engine health maintenance rather than dramatic, short-term intervention. Brand number 5. Marathon. Marathon Petroleum does not spend money on the kind of consumer-facing advertising campaigns that Shell and Chevron run. You're not going to see Marathon sponsoring major sporting events or running primetime television spots about how advanced their fuel chemistry is. Their marketing budget relative to their size is modest, and that is a deliberate business decision. What Marathon spent that money on instead is vertical integration. This is one of the most important structural advantages any fuel brand can have, and Marathon has built it more completely than most. They are not just a retail brand. They are a refiner. Marathon sources and processes crude oil at their own refineries, blends their additive package into the fuel at the refinery level, and then distributes that finished product through their own network to their own retail locations. The fuel that comes out of a Marathon pump traveled through Marathon's hands from nearly the very beginning of its existence. Fewer hands in the supply chain between the refinery and your fuel tank means fewer opportunities for quality to drift. It means fewer scenarios where an independent distributor might economize on additives or store fuel in conditions that allow contamination. Marathon knows exactly what went into every batch of fuel they produce because they put it there. Marathon also owns and operates ARCO, which is separately top-tier certified and operates extensively in the western United States. This effectively doubles their top-tier certified retail footprint and gives their fuel quality standards broad geographic reach in markets where ARCO is a dominant brand. The pricing reality with Marathon is that their fuel, despite being fully top-tier certified with a complete high-concentration additive package, is typically priced at, or very near, the same pump price as the generic non-certified stations in the same market. The difference between filling up at Marathon and filling up at the unnamed independent station down the street is sometimes literally 3 cents per gallon. That 3 cents is the cost of keeping your fuel injectors clean, your intake valves deposit-free, and your fuel economy at the level your car was designed to deliver. The bottom line on Marathon is that this is the quiet professional in the group. They are not trying to win a marketing award. They are trying to run a tight supply chain and deliver consistent top-tier quality at a competitive price across thousands of locations. They succeed at that goal every day without needing you to notice. Brand number 6, Phillips 66. Phillips 66 was incorporated in 1927. To put that in historical context, they were operating fuel stations before the modern EPA regulatory framework existed, before catalytic converters were mandatory equipment, before fuel injection replaced carburetors, and before most of the deposit problems that modern fuel additives are designed to solve had even been formally identified as engineering challenges. They were not just a founding member of the top-tier program when it launched in 2004. They were one of the 3 original founding members alongside Chevron and Shell. That means Phillips 66 was in the room when the technical standards for the program were being written, contributing institutional knowledge accumulated over nearly 8 decades of fuel chemistry research at that point. That depth of history has practical implications for the fuel in your tank. Phillips 66's additive package was not developed reactively in response to regulations or competitor pressure. It was developed proactively, refined through nearly a century of iteration, and informed by an understanding of engine combustion chemistry that predates most of the companies in the modern fuel industry. Like several of the best brands on this list, Phillips 66 delivers a consistent additive treatment across all octane grades. Their 87 octane regular receives the same detergent chemistry as their 91 octane premium. This is the approach that most benefits everyday drivers who are not filling up with premium fuel on a regular basis. Phillips 66 also has deep roots in motorsport, having supplied fuel to racing programs across multiple categories for decades. Racing applications push fuel to its absolute performance limits, exposing any weaknesses in combustion chemistry under conditions of extreme temperature, pressure, and sustained high RPM operation. The engineering lessons from those applications do not stay in the racing program. They flow back into the formulation process for the pump fuel that regular drivers buy every day. The bottom line on Phillips 66 is that this is the heritage institution of the American fuel industry. 90-plus years of accumulated chemistry knowledge, original top-tier founding member status, consistent cross-grade additive treatment, and the competitive advantage of having literally more experience in fuel formulation than almost any other company on Earth. I want to pause here and ask you a genuine question. Have you personally noticed any difference in performance, smoothness, or fuel economy when you switched from a generic station to a top-tier brand? A lot of people do not expect to notice anything, and then they do. Drop your experience in the comments section because it helps other people make this decision with real-world information, not just laboratory data. Brand number 7, Sunoco. Sunoco's identity in the fuel industry is built on a foundation that most consumer brands cannot claim. Their expertise was developed on the racetrack before it was ever applied to the pump. Sunoco has been the official fuel supplier of NASCAR for years, and they have supplied fuel to IndyCar, IMSA, and various other sanctioned racing series where the performance and reliability of the fuel is the difference between winning and catastrophic engine failure in front of a national audience. What racing taught Sunoco's chemists that general fuel production does not is an extremely precise understanding of combustion efficiency under stress. In a racing engine running at 8 or 9,000 RPM with boost pressure from a turbocharger, the octane rating is not an abstract marketing number. It is the difference between optimal combustion and destructive pre-ignition that can destroy an engine worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single lap. Sunoco built their entire company culture around understanding octane at that level of exactness. In retail markets, Sunoco is top-tier certified and offers premium fuel at 93 or 94 octane depending on the market, which is meaningfully higher than the 91 octane premium that many competing brands offer. For drivers running turbocharged engines, high compression performance engines, or any vehicle whose manufacturer specifically recommends 93 octane, this is a direct performance and protection benefit. Higher octane provides greater resistance to pre-ignition, allows the engine's knock sensor to permit more aggressive ignition timing, and results in more complete combustion and better power delivery. The ethanol-free option that Sunoco offers at select locations deserves particular attention. Ethanol, which is blended into most American pump fuel at a 10% concentration called E10, has known issues in specific applications. Ethanol is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs water from the atmosphere over time. In equipment that sits unused for extended periods, this water absorption can lead to phase separation, where the ethanol and water separate from the gasoline and settle at the bottom of the tank. Classic cars, motorcycles, marine engines, lawn equipment, and generators are all vulnerable to this problem in ways that a daily driven modern vehicle typically is not. Ethanol-free fuel eliminates this concern entirely, and finding it at a certified top-tier location with documented quality standards is genuinely valuable for owners of that type of equipment. The bottom line on Sunoco is that this is the specialist's brand. If you drive a high-performance turbocharged vehicle, a classic car, a motorcycle, or any engine where octane matters more than average, Sunoco's racing-derived chemistry and higher octane offerings are directly relevant to your situation in a way that some of the more general-purpose brands on this list are not. Brand number 8, 76 stations. 76 is a Phillips 66 subsidiary that operates primarily in the western United States, with particularly dense coverage throughout California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Arizona. They were an original founding member of the top-tier program alongside their parent company in 2004, and their fuel is produced using the same Phillips 66 additive chemistry and quality standards. The California context for 76 deserves specific attention because California's fuel regulations are, without any meaningful debate, the strictest in the United States. The California Air Resources Board, known as CARB, imposes reformulated fuel requirements, vapor pressure limits, oxygenate restrictions, and emission standards that go substantially beyond federal EPA rules. Fuel that meets California's standards has essentially been tested against the most demanding regulatory environment in the country. If the formulation satisfies CARB, it is going to exceed the standards in every other state in the union by a comfortable margin. 76 stations benefit from the same high-volume throughput dynamic that works in Costco's favor. California is one of the most heavily populated states in the country, with one of the highest rates of vehicle ownership and daily driving. High traffic at fuel stations means the underground tanks are turning over regularly and fuel is fresh, which matters for quality consistency. Even in California, where pump prices are consistently among the highest in the nation and regularly exceed $6 per gallon at major brand stations in urban areas, 76 manages to price competitively within the top-tier certified segment. You're not paying an extra premium to access the quality. The bottom line on 76 is straightforward. This is Phillips 66 quality. Delivered through a brand that dominates the West Coast market, satisfies the strictest fuel regulations in the country, and does it at competitive prices. If you're in their coverage area, this is a natural choice. Now let's talk about what to avoid. The scam breakdown. This part of this video is the one the fuel industry would most prefer you never see. BP held top-tier certification from 2013 until approximately 2016, then made a decision to leave the program. They did not leave because their fuel improved beyond what top-tier could measure. Since leaving, BP has continued to market their fuel using their proprietary Invigorate branding and makes claims in their advertising suggesting their detergent levels exceed top-tier standards. There's one critical problem with those claims. BP refuses to submit their fuel for the independent third-party testing that top-tier certification requires. They are essentially asking you to take their word for it, specifically because they will not allow independent verification of the word they are asking you to take. There's a second issue with BP that their marketing does not address directly. Even within their own internal standards, only their premium grade receives the higher concentration additive treatment they claim exceeds top tier. Their regular and mid-grade products meet the bare EPA minimum. For the majority of BP customers who are buying regular 87 octane fuel every time they fill up, the enhanced Invigorate chemistry being advertised is largely irrelevant to what they are actually pumping into their tank. Travel center chains, including Pilot and Flying J, represent another category of concern. Independent detergent testing of fuel from these locations measured concentrations in the range of 8.8 to 9.4 milligrams per 100 milliliters. The EPA minimum requirement sits at roughly 3 milligrams. These stations are doing the minimum and nothing more. Recall that top-tier fuels are running at 5 to 7 times that minimum. The gap between a Pilot station and a Chevron or Shell station, measured in actual detergent chemistry, is enormous. The gap in pump price is often just a few cents. The deposit consequences of this difference compound over time in ways that are not dramatic day to day but are absolutely real over the life of a vehicle. Non-top tier fuels accumulated 19 times more intake valve deposits than top tier fuels over 4,000 miles in AOEA's controlled testing. Water contamination, which accounts for more than 20% of documented fuel quality violations in several states, accelerates corrosion throughout the fuel system. Octane fraud, where regular fuel is labeled and sold as premium, is documented and penalized by state regulators, but still occurs at a rate that should concern anyone who regularly buys premium. The average American driver who uses low-quality, non-certified fuel consistently is absorbing up to $1,000 per year in quantifiable financial damage. Reduced fuel economy from clogged injectors and dirty combustion chambers. Progressive carbon buildup that requires expensive intake cleaning services to address. And eventual component failures, fuel pumps, injectors, sensors, that could have been avoided with fuel that costs 3 to 5 cents more per gallon. The American fuel industry is running two completely different businesses under the same category name. 8 brands have made a real commitment to chemistry, independent verification, and protecting the engines of their customers. Chevron invented the baseline technology that made modern top-tier additives possible and has refined it for over 4 decades. Shell took that baseline and pushed it significantly higher, engineering molecular protection that goes beyond cleaning into active surface defense. Costco applied their warehouse efficiency model to fuel chemistry and proved you can have top-tier quality at below-market prices. Exxon Mobil built the most complex additive system in the category with 9 ingredients targeting different failure points simultaneously. Marathon built vertical integration that controls quality at every stage, from the refinery to the pump. Phillips 66 brings nearly a century of institutional expertise that predates the entire concept of modern fuel additives. Sunoco brings racing-derived precision chemistry and octane ratings that matter for high-performance applications. And 76 delivers Phillips 66 standards at scale across the most regulated fuel market in the country. Every single one of those 8 brands costs somewhere between 3 and 25 cents more per gallon than the generic alternatives. That is the cost of the chemistry. The cost of not having it, measured in real repair bills and lost fuel economy over the life of your vehicle, is not close to comparable. Your engine does not respond to advertising campaigns or brand loyalty. It responds to the concentration of cleaning agents in parts per million moving through the fuel system hour after hour, mile after mile. Feed it verified chemistry, demand the top-tier logo, stop accepting the bare minimum from stations that are banking on the fact that most drivers will never look into this closely enough to know what they are missing. Subscribe if you want this level of detail about what actually goes on under your hood. Drop a comment telling me which of these 8 brands you are making your primary station going forward, and tell me if you are switching from something generic. Your engine is going to thank you, and based on the math, so is your wallet.